to the topic of video games, most would readily agree that it is widely used around the world. Where the agreement ends, however, is on the question of whether or not it's contributing to the violence in society. While some are convinced that video games have no effect on its users, others believe that it can be a destructive tool. Let us be reminded that the goal of this debate is not to fight with one another. Rather, we will be discovering the best answer for everyone.
Good evening. What would you do? Sorry. What would you do if a person who just begun their adult journey randomly came to your school and shot everyone that could? Well, it happened to other people, called the Sandy Hook Massacre, 2012, when a 20-year-old shot and killed 26 people at Sandy Hook Elementary School. We believe that playing violent video games could cause someone to be violent in real life. Some other similar shootings were the Columbia Massacre in 1999. Other shootings were the Aura CO Theater shooting, 2012, and the Washington Navy Yard Massacre, 2013. All these mass murders have links just like violent video games, and evidence to have been exposed to an inappropriate and gruesome content at a young age. Violent video games are known to influence destructive behaviors in people, especially to younger generations, such as children and teenagers, since they are easily influenced by the content they see on the media and want to imitate it in real life. But why is it bad for younger children? Well, it's bad for younger children because younger children's brains are not fully developed, and violent video games can change their mindset in life negatively. Teenagers that play violent video games could also be affected negatively, since many teenagers go through problematic situations in life. Adding more negativity in their mind could briefly lead them into doing violent things that could be harmful not only to themselves but for others. As said from source Credit Donkey, says, study shows people playing shooter games damage the hippocampus area of their brain. This area is used for spatial and long-term memories. This can lead to illness like depression and Alzheimer's. To end my statement, violent video games could cause aggression and affect how they view the world.
Hello class. I am Miles Jackson, opening statement of the negative team. But when my opponents at first said on their opening argument, they had said that multiple shootings have happened, but they refused to acknowledge the fact that 9 times out of 10 of the shootings of several places, not only being schools but stores as well, are also linked to what's it called? Oh yes, mental illnesses or diseases such as a man attacked the local Walmart. He was on LSD, which also could be associated with meth cocaine. Correct. He also played video games. He made several video game references, but people still blame it on video games, even though, guess what? He was on LSD. But as well, and in the 70s, the game Death Race was released. Mind you, Death Race was the game that really started the debate between do video games cause violence and behavior. But shortly after that, there was a shooting at Columbia High School. Mind you, it had nothing to do with the game Death Race, which was the start of the debate. Mind you, they were playing Doom, but it was not related to the fact they played Doom because they made no references leading up to that event. Because it was a violent shooting game as is, they made that assumption. They thought they could link two things together. They never thought of any other conclusions. But what baffles me is the fact that Death Race and Doom are nothing alike, nothing similar. The very reason we're having this debate right now, right? The very reason why they want to link those two occurrences together isn't even the reason. It's not the reason why they shot up the high school. It's not the reason why people shoot at video games now. Simply, there have been little to no, if any, events where kids or teenagers have attacked. Time's up. Okay.
Thank you, negative team. We will now break for 2 minutes. Each team prepare your debaters.
You got slowed down because of stuttering. It throws it off.
Yeah, I felt it off.
But let me see.
I kept stalling until I tried to
Okay, thank you. To start this off, my team believes that playing violent video games has a major effect on not just anyone, but both children and teens. Violent video games could lead them to be violent in their adult lives. To support this, according to the Harvard Health and Medical School Publishing, it states, both the AAP and AACAP reason that children learn by observing, mimicking, and adopting behaviors, a basic principle of learning, social learning theory. These organizations express concern that exposure to aggressive behavior or violence in video games or in the media may over time desensitize youth by numbing them emotionally, causing nightmares and sleep problems, impair school performance, and lead to aggressive behavior and bullying.
I have a counter argument to that. By CBS News, statistics show that every 10% in an increase in video games sold, the crime rate goes down by 1%. There's hardly any other proof that could decide that those two are not linked.
Okay. Well, according to my research, not only do violent video games, how what you said in the introduction, they both have similarities in causing to mental health, but they have multiple shootings and massacres. They have multiple shootings and massacres that all have links to violent video games, such as the Colombian massacre,
But in course, and studies show that there's not enough evidence to prove that violent video games cause crimes, and most of the shootings happen because of people's mental disorders, and it wasn't influenced from video games.
Well, according to my research evidence, according to the article, 3 teenagers were trying to replicate the video game Grand Theft Auto in real life when they robbed a service station while drunk, a court has ordered. This shows that children are more susceptible to what they experience, learn, and hear about, or what they do in their daily lives, including playing violent video games.
Mind you, ma'am, he was under the influence of an alcoholic substance. What says that he would do so under any other situation?
By playing violent video games, it could amplify their need or want to do it.
But also, as Miles said, they were drunk, so it could have been like them doing it while sober.
Just as music could amplify or entice somebody to do something criminally, alcohol could do that same thing by amplifying their what already weak mental state he was in. Playing violent video games could have just enticed him to say, I could actually do this, and trying to succeed and do it.
But dude,
Just like Jamaica said when she was up there, you don't just do something under the influence. It has to already be something that you internally or mentally want or think of. And the alcohol, all that did was boost him to do it. But he already had thoughts of doing it from playing violent video games.
but as a response to that, people are responsible for their purchases and their actions from their product. A study from psychologists Craig A. Anderson, PhD, and Karen E. Dill states, one study reveals that young men who are habitually aggressive may be especially vulnerable to aggression enhancing effects of repeated exposure to violent video games. Although it may say that they are vulnerable to it, the word habitually means that they're naturally aggressive. So when they're playing those video games,
They're naturally aggressive, but violent video games makes them more aggressive. It boosts their aggression.
Not only that, according to this, it says not many people immediately go to play violent video games, especially younger children. The amount of violent video games is actually much higher than the amount of no violence played, as proven by a survey that there are 75% of people who have played compared to 25% that don't. More people that have played violent games and have a link to it go out to commit more violent crimes, especially children.
a study from National Institute found that video games may do the opposite by helping to reduce the symptoms associated with depression, while also warning that violent video games may cause spikes in adrenaline. This explains that violent video games can cause excitement such as adrenaline. However, it does not cause aggression. They help the body by increasing the rates of blood circulation and breathing, which is healthy for the human body, proving my point that violent video games do not cause crimes.
Violent video games can give people, teens especially, a wrongful way to regulate their emotions.
So it's not fun.
And when they're raised, and
Talk about how violent video games is an outlet to let out all the aggression you had. Talk about how violent video games is an outlet to let out all the aggression you had before they play.
My opponent does have a lot of valid and good arguments, but and yet my opponent does not seem to differentiate the fact that link to and cause of are two different things. Link to means that they play violent video games. They might make short little references to it, but making references to such things does not mean that such video games are the cause of such crimes. And of 28 global studies that gathered up 21,000 people per study, each with different people.
Add something. Well, you said link to and cause to. Well, if there is no such link or no comparison, why do they have so many mass murders, so many crimes, and all have linked to mental issues, and video games can cause that, but they all have links to some of the same violent video games. Not only that, some of them have already had aggressive thoughts, have mental issues, they're on things such as drugs, etc., but they all have a link to one of the same things. That's anything they look for in murders, crimes, linked to, or just anything like that. So there's so many elements that goes into it, but every single one of them have linked to violent video games, especially in adolescents.
I said there's many elements, and you say adolescents, and that's funny, but and yet we're all full of adolescent children. I can count on hand, actually offhand, because there's so many people in this building as is, right, that play violent video games. And as you look in this room right now, they're being silent, patiently watching us have a debate and they're not doing anything, and yet they play violent video games all the while.
Okay, well, yes, they have played violent video games all their life, but some may have, you never know what someone may do whenever they also, you take in the component of violent video games, you take in the component of being under the influence, you take in the component of mental issues, all of that together causes a crime. Violent video games is just something that gives people an idea, but the push is mental illness. The push is being under the influence, but the cause, the main element that gives them the idea is violent video games.
Not only that, you're comparing everybody in this classroom. There's not only the people in this classroom. This is not the whole universe, nor the world. If you go and do research in a jail cell, in juvenile, or even if you go to the traditional side of the building and you go and you survey and you go and make your own research, it'll be different from the results that you just find in this classroom.
The University of Saskatchewan, the same university that I've used my last resources into, also say higher video game play rates show a decrease in poverty and violence in areas where violent video games play is increased. Paraphrase, which means is the higher the play rates of violent video games has shown to decrease poverty and violence in whatever games that the high play rate is increased. And if you ask me for my source once more, it's the University of Saskatchewan.
Time's up.